The moment I pulled into the driveway and saw Jessica standing there in my garage, clutching a wad of cash, I knew something wasn't right. It hit me like a gut punch. She had that smug, self-satisfied grin, the one she always wears when she thinks she's pulled something clever. It twisted my stomach instantly. "Susan," she chirped, waving the money around like she'd just hit the jackpot on some cheesy game show. "Perfect timing, I've got amazing news." I climbed out of my beat-up Honda Civic, slow and wary, letting my eyes sweep across the garage. It didn't take long to spot the problem. The usual resting place of my project car sat empty. Just a greasy oil stain on the concrete floor and the lingering scent of motor oil told me what used to be there. I already knew the answer, but I asked anyway. "Where's the Cobra?" I said, soft but sharp. Jessica's smile stretched wider, like she was proud of herself. "Oh, that rust bucket?" I sold it. Got $3,000 in cash, which, honestly, is probably more than that old clunker was worth. You needed something more practical. I mean, come on, Susan, a grown woman driving around in some beat-up sports car from the 60s? It was kind of pathetic. For a second, it felt like the whole world tilted. I just stared at the empty spot where my 1967 Shelby Cobra 427 used to sit. This wasn't just any old car. It was one of only 348 ever made. I'd bought it as nothing but a rusted skeleton and spent 4 years breathing life back into it. Every single bolt, every speck of paint, every greasy inch of that car had passed through my hands. "You sold it," I said, flat, keeping my voice level even though my chest felt like it might explode. "For your own good," she said sweetly, tucking a perfectly styled gray curl behind her ear. "Thomas agrees with me. You've been wasting too much time fiddling with greasy parts when you could be doing something more fitting. Maybe now you'll pick up gardening. Or learn to cook." I stepped closer, eyes locked on the way she hugged that cash like it was a newborn baby. $3,000, I repeated, slowly. For a car that was just appraised at over 400 grand? She blinked, still grinning like she hadn't just committed grand theft. "I put it on Craigslist. Some nice young guy showed up, real sweet kid. Said he'd been searching for a fixer-upper just like that one. I told him it needed some work, but he was thrilled. I even gave him those fancy tools you always left lying around." My tools. My Snap-on set tools that belonged to my grandfather, a man who spent over 30 years building and racing cars. Tools worth more than most folks' daily drivers. Tools he left me when he passed, along with a legacy built under hoods and over engines. "Jessica," I said carefully, "did you at least get any paperwork? Anything official?" "Of course I did." "I'm not stupid," she snapped, digging around in her purse and pulling out a crumpled piece of paper. "Here's the bill of sale. Everything's legal." I took the sheet from her with steady hands, even though my heart felt like it was trying to punch its way out of my chest. One glance was all it took, lined notebook paper, a sloppy signature, no transfer of title, no ID, no legal identifiers. Just a scribble and a prayer. "The guy you sold it to, did you get his name? His driver's license? An address?" She waved off the question like it was nonsense. "He paid in cash, Susan. That's all that really matters. You should be thanking me. Now you can buy a sensible car, something with a trunk. Maybe a sedan." I folded the paper slowly, like it might tear if I moved too fast, and slipped it into my pocket. "You know what, Jessica?" I said, giving her a tight smile. "You're absolutely right. Thanks for taking care of that for me." The flash of confusion on her face was almost satisfying. She'd clearly expected an argument, maybe some screaming, tears, or even a meltdown. But I gave her none of that. Just calm, polite gratitude. "Well," she stammered, clearly caught off guard. "You're welcome, dear. I only did what I thought was best. Thomas is going to be so pleased when he hears." Thomas. My husband of 6 years. The same guy who gave his mother a key to our house, just in case, and somehow never found the guts to tell her no. Thomas, who thought my passion for cars was cute, but preferred I spend Saturdays getting my nails done instead of tuning carburetors. I'm sure he'll be thrilled, I said, pulling out my phone. Hey Jessica, would you mind hanging around for a sec? I need to make a quick call. She nodded, counting her cash again, oblivious to the shift in my voice. Take your time, sweetie. I'll tidy up the garage for you. I walked to the far corner of the garage, where the Wi-Fi signal came through the strongest, and dialed a number I knew by heart. Detective Martinez, I said, keeping my tone low. It's Susan. I need to report a theft. Susan? What happened? Lisa and I go way back, college roommates. While she was grinding through criminal justice, I was buried in mechanical engineering textbooks. She knew about my Cobra, my rep in the classic car scene, and exactly what that car meant to me. Someone sold my Cobra behind my back, I told her, eyes still on Jessica, who was now poking through my remaining tools like she knew what she was doing. The 67? The one I was prepping for Barrett Jackson. She whistled, long and low. Damn. Who pulled that kind of move? My mother-in-law. She had access to the garage and figured she'd do me a favor by offloading what she saw as a piece of junk. Sold it for $3,000. Silence stretched for a beat. $3,000? For a numbers matching 427. Yep. She listed it on Craigslist as a project car. That might be the most painful automotive disaster I've ever heard. What do you need? I've got a name, barely legible, from the bill of sale. That's about it. Can you run it and see where the car might have gone? Send me what you've got, she said, no hesitation in her voice. I'll get started right away. Lisa. I'm sorry. I know what that car meant to you too. I glanced over at Jessica. She was fiddling with my socket sets, trying to arrange them by color like they were pieces in some preschool puzzle instead of precision tools. Thanks, Lisa, I said into the phone. I'll send over what I've got. As soon as we hung up, I quickly typed out what little info I had on the so-called buyer and shot it over to her. Then I headed back toward Jessica, who now stood with her hands on her hips, proudly surveying the garage like she'd just conquered new territory. All taken care of, I said, smiling just enough to fake civility. Why don't you go on home? Thomas gets back from Chicago tomorrow night. I'm sure he'll want to hear all about your big accomplishment. Of course, she beamed, scooping up her purse and that fat stack of cash like she'd just closed $1 million deal. She was glowing with self-satisfaction. You'll see, sweetheart, this really was the right move. Once she was gone, I just stood there, soaking in the silence. Alone in my garage. My sanctuary. I stared at the gaping space where the Cobra had sat. For years of blood, sweat, busted knuckles, and late nights. Tracking down rare parts, rewinding welding videos at 2 a.m., rebuilding that 427 big block by hand, one stubborn bolt at a time. That car wasn't just metal and paint. It was my bond with Grandpa. Every piece I restored was like a conversation with him. To Jessica, it was clutter. To me, it was legacy. The next morning, Lisa called. No warm-up, no chit-chat. That name on the bill of sale? Fake, she said bluntly. Guy called himself Daniel. Numbers disconnected. Address leads nowhere. You think we're dealing with someone who's done this before? Most likely, she replied. Sounds like a flipper. Knows how to find undervalued classics, pays in untraceable cash, uses bogus contact info, and flips the car fast, usually through shady auctions or backdoor deals. I leaned back in my office chair at the firm, staring out the window at the quiet little courtyard below. Everything there was neat, orderly. Nothing like the mess brewing in my garage. So, it's gone. Maybe. But I've got a few friends in the vintage car scene. If a Shelby like that pops up, someone's going to notice. Especially one that rare. Thanks, Lisa. I really appreciate it. Just do me one favor, she said. When you start your next build, I get first ride. Later that day, I was in a meeting, going over stress tolerances on a new bridge design, when my phone buzzed on the table. A text from Thomas. Mom told me about the car. Probably for the best. Maybe now we can use the garage for storage like normal people. I stared at the screen for a few seconds before flipping the phone face down. Some things needed to be said in person. Thomas came home the next evening in his usual whirlwind, dragging his suitcase, tie loosened, already mid-story before he even got around to saying hello. Vic, you should have seen their faces when I walked them through the cost breakdown. Client was basically ready to sign on the spot, he said, grinning like a high school quarterback who'd just won state. That's great, I said from the kitchen, stirring the pasta sauce. How was the flight? Delayed, of course. But hey, first class makes it bearable. He wandered into the kitchen and gave me a quick, distracted kiss on the cheek. Mom filled me in about the car, he said. Honestly, I'm kind of glad. That thing was starting to take over your weekends. I kept stirring, the sauce bubbling slowly. Is that really how you saw it? Oh, come on, Vic. You were out there every Saturday and Sunday. It was like being married to a grease monkey. He laughed, not noticing how still I'd gone. Now we can finally use the garage for something useful. Maybe get a treadmill in there. Add some proper shelves. I reached over and turned the burner down. Your mother sold my car behind my back, I said, quiet but firm. She meant well. You know how she is, always trying to help, thinking about what's best for everyone. He cracked open a beer like we were talking about a lost Tupperware lid. And I mean, $3,000 for something that old? Not terrible. We could put it toward a nice vacation. I turned around slowly and faced him, taking a long look at the man I married. Thomas stood there, polished and confident, wearing that same designer watch I bought him 2 anniversaries ago. Once, that ease and charm had felt like safety. Now, it just felt unfamiliar. That car was worth $400,000, I said, staring him dead in the eye. He stopped mid-sip, eyes wide. Wait, what? It was a 1967 Shelby Cobra 427. Numbers matching. One of just 348 ever made. I was restoring it to auction off at Barrett-Jackson. His face drained of color. You never told me it was worth that much. You never asked, I said, calmly. In 6 years of marriage, not once did you ask what it was worth, or why it mattered. You just joked about the smell of motor oil and rolled your eyes every time I spent a weekend under the hood. He stood there, blinking, trying to do the math like it might fix things. But Mom said it was just some old beater you were messing around with. Your mother stole from me, Thomas. She sold a car she didn't own, for pennies, to someone who gave her fake information and disappeared. He slowly set the beer down, his hands a little shaky now. Can we? I mean, is there a chance we can get it back? I don't know, I said. The cops are on it now. But people who deal in stolen classics move quick. They've got networks, aliases. It's a full-time hustle. He swallowed hard. Jesus. What are we supposed to do? For the first time since I found Jessica playing queen of my garage with a fistful of cash, I let myself smile. Not the friendly kind. This one was colder, more certain. I said, aren't doing anything. I'm going to keep working with the police and do everything I can to track my car down. And you, I added, are going to sit down with your mother and have one very honest conversation. About boundaries. About theft. And about how close she came to getting herself arrested. The next morning, everything shifted with a single phone call. I found your car, Lisa said, her voice practically buzzing with energy. I was just settling in at work, coffee still warm in my hand, but the second I heard her tone, I shut my office door and sank into my chair. Where? I asked, trying to keep my heart from jumping out of my chest. Scottsdale. Private buyer named Matthew picked it up from a dealer yesterday. Paid $250,000 for it. Someone made a ridiculous profit flipping your Cobra. $250,000. I echoed, stunned. It was worth $400,000, fully restored. Yep. My guess? The dealer told him it still needed a ton of work and lowballed the sale price. I rubbed the bridge of my nose, already feeling the headache creeping in. Of course they did. But here's the good news, Lisa said, her voice steadying. This guy, Morrison? He's legit. Not some back alley hustler. He's a serious collector, and when I told him what happened, he was stunned. He wants to help. What does help mean exactly? It means we've got paperwork. Morrison has a clean purchase record from the dealer. The dealer has a signed receipt from your mystery man, Daniel. And we've got Jessica's hand-scrawled bill of sale. Put all that together, and what we've got is a textbook case of receiving stolen property. For the first time in days, I actually breathed, really breathed. So we can get it back? We can, she said, firm as steel. Morrison's insurance will take care of his loss. The dealer's already talking. Last thing they want is criminal heat. Scottsdale PD is tracing the cash trail. How long are we looking at? A few weeks, give or take. Just enough time to sort through the legal channels. But don't worry, your Cobra's tagged as evidence now. It's locked down. No one's driving off with it. That night, I called a family meeting. Thomas looked exhausted when he sat down, pale, slouched, like the weight of the last few days was finally catching up to him. Jessica strolled in fashionably late, still wearing that air of martyrdom like perfume. I don't understand why this has to be some big dramatic thing, she huffed as she eased into a chair. I already explained everything to Thomas. I sold the car at a very reasonable price. Jessica, I said, keeping my voice calm, I need you to listen closely. The car you sold? It was worth $400,000. She blinked, visibly annoyed. That's absurd, Susan. It was just an old. It was a 1967 Shelby Cobra 427, I interrupted. One of the rarest, most valuable muscle cars ever built. And I've spent the last 4 years restoring it to near mint condition. Her smugness faltered, just a hairline crack. That can't be. It looked like scrap metal. It looked that way because you saw it mid-restoration, I said. What you call junk was actually a disassembled classic being rebuilt piece by piece to original factory spec. I picked up my tablet and opened the photo album I'd kept throughout the project. This is what it looked like when I first bought it. The first photo showed a rusted shell of a car, no engine, no seats, abandoned in some dusty barn. Jessica squinted at it. See? I'm not crazy, that's junk. I swiped to the next image. After media blasting and the beginning of the bodywork. The lines were clean now. Primer laid down smooth. The car's shape already coming back to life. Next photo. This is during the engine rebuild. That's my grandfather's tool set on the bench. Every inch of that 427 big block taken apart, cleaned, and rebuilt by hand. With every swipe, her confidence faded. The interior, I went on. Hand-stitched leather seats. Factory original gauges, calibrated and reinstalled by me. The dash looked showroom new. Finally, I got to the last photo. And this, I said, turning the screen so she had a full view, is what you sold for $3,000. The car looked like it had rolled straight out of a museum. Deep glossy paint, polished chrome, flawless detail from hood to tailpipe. Jessica went pale. I didn't know. That guy you sold it to? I said. He wasn't just some nice kid with dreams of fixing up a classic. He was a pro. A thief. These people scan Craigslist looking for clueless sellers and desperate families. Thomas finally found his voice, shaky and low. A thief. Fake name. Fake number. Fake address. Police think he's done this before. He targets situations like this. Estate sales. Divorces. Meddling relatives. Jessica was staring at the photos now, her hands clenched in her lap, knuckles white. For $100,000, she whispered. That's what it was worth. And yes, it's been found. A serious collector in Scottsdale bought it for $250,000. He's already helping with the investigation. Her eyes widened. So, we're getting it back? I'm getting it back, I corrected. But there's something else you need to hear, and you need to understand it fully. What you did wasn't just an innocent mix-up. It was theft. You sold property that didn't belong to you. And the district attorney is reviewing your actions for possible criminal charges. Silence dropped like a stone. Jessica looked from Thomas to me, then back down to the tablet, her eyes glassy. Criminal charges? In this state, anything over $100,000 is first-degree felony theft, I said. That's a mandatory 2 years in prison, minimum. Thomas buried his face in his hands. Mom, what the hell did you do? Jessica shook her head slowly, her voice cracking. I was trying to help. I thought I was doing the right thing. I didn't know, I swear I didn't realize what it was. No, I said gently but firmly. What you did was decide that my passion didn't matter. You thought it was silly. Not proper. Not something a woman my age should be doing. So you took it upon yourself to fix it. Tears started running down her cheeks, mascara bleeding into black streaks across her skin. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to ruin anything. I'll pay you back. I'll figure it out. I didn't yell. I didn't even raise my voice. I didn't need to. With what? I asked, leveling my gaze at Jessica. You've got $3,000 stuffed in an envelope. That wouldn't even cover the paint job on that car. Thomas looked up at me, voice shaking a little. We'll make it right. We can apply for a loan or figure something out. I didn't flinch. Thomas, I said, eyes locked on his, you need to understand something. What your mother did, it wasn't just a bad decision or some well-meaning mistake. She committed a felony. She sold something worth more than most folks' houses. And you don't undo a felony with an apology and a loan application. Over the next few weeks, while the police continued piecing the case together and the legal machinery ground forward, I noticed something strange starting to happen. The way we operated as a family began to shift, subtly at first, then unmistakably. Thomas had to finally face the reality of what Jessica had done and what it had cost. For years, he played neutral, brushed off my passion for cars, and let his mom run roughshod over boundaries because it was easier than pushing back. But now he couldn't hide behind indifference. The truth was staring him in the face. That hobby of mine? Turned out it was a skill, one with serious value. 6-figure value. One evening, we were sitting in the kitchen, the quiet kind of heavy between us, when he finally spoke up. I never really got it, he said softly. I knew you liked working on cars, but I didn't understand how deep it went. I kept my eyes on the cutting board, slicing bell peppers in even rows. No, I said, you didn't want to get it. It was easier to treat it like a cute little phase than admit I was doing something serious, something you didn't understand. He didn't argue. For once, he didn't have anything to say. The legal side wrapped up faster than I expected. Lisa had been right about Morrison, he was the real deal. When he learned the Cobra had been stolen, he was genuinely horrified. Said he could never keep a car with a history like that, no matter how rare it was. The dealer who sold it to him agreed to cooperate in exchange for immunity. Turns out, Daniel wasn't just some lone scam artist. He was part of a larger operation, targeting classic cars being sold cheap by people who didn't realize what they had. Estate sales, online listings, situations just like mine. As for Jessica, the threat of real jail time, actual time behind bars, snapped her out of her fog real fast. She took a plea deal, 5 years probation, restitution, and community service. She didn't go to prison, but what she broke, that doesn't go back together. Thomas and I gave therapy a shot. Sat through a few sessions. Talked around things more than through them. But it didn't take long to see what had really happened. This mess hadn't caused our marriage to fall apart. It just revealed how hollow it already was. Thomas needed someone who made sense in his world, someone who fit neatly into his well-polished life. I was never going to be that person. I wasn't going to spend weekends getting pedicures and pretending my heart didn't belong to steel and torque wrenches. And me? I needed someone who respected what I loved, even if it wasn't their thing. Especially if it wasn't their thing. 6 months after Jessica sold the Cobra, Thomas and I signed the divorce papers. No screaming, no big dramatic fight. Just the quiet end of something that had been slowly unraveling for years. He kept the house, The one with the spotless garage and empty walls. I packed up what was left of my tools, the ones Jessica hadn't given away, and rented a little place just outside the city. Nothing fancy. Just a small home with a 2-car garage and enough room to breathe. The Cobra came back to me looking nearly as flawless as the day I'd finished it. Morrison had taken care of it, kept it inside, had his mechanic give it a full once-over to make sure nothing got damaged. I was grateful. But when I stood in front of it again, I realized something had changed. The love I'd poured into that build? It was tangled up now. Twisted in betrayal, loss, resentment. It didn't feel like mine anymore. So I sold it. The right way this time, through Barrett-Jackson, with every scrap of documentation and provenance in order. It went for $420,000. And with that money, I did something I never thought I'd be able to afford. I bought a 1970 Plymouth Cuda. It had been sitting untouched in a barn for over 30 years. Not nearly as rare or flashy as the Cobra, but for me, it meant more. My grandfather had one. It was the car he taught me to drive in. The one he'd let me pretend to steer when I was just a kid, barely tall enough to see over the dash. This build wasn't about resale value or auction prestige. This one was for me. These days, my weekends are quieter. The garage doors stay open, music drifting out into the yard while I work. Tools scattered across the bench, just like Grandpa always had them. The Cuda's still in pieces, but she's coming along. Slowly, surely. With love. Neighbors drop by from time to time, curious. Some are surprised to see a woman elbow-deep in engine grease. Most just nod and admire the work. Thomas still sends the occasional text, birthdays, holidays, anniversaries. Says he's seeing someone new. She appreciates the finer things, he wrote once. I always reply, glad to hear it. Hope you're doing well. And I mean it. I don't miss the marriage. Just the time I spent trying to be someone I never was. As for Jessica, we haven't spoken since court. And honestly, I think that's for the best. Last month, Lisa stopped by to check out the Cuda. She ran her hand along the fender, admiring the fresh plum paint, deep and glossy, shifting color under the lights like a mood ring. You know, she said, this one might end up even better than the Cobra. I smiled, wiping my hands on a shop rag, grease smudging the corners. Different goal this time, I told her. The Cobra was about proving something. Showing I could play in the big leagues. And this one, she asked. This one's about going back to where it all started, I said. Getting my hands dirty for the joy of it. She nodded, and we stood there in the garage for a while, the quiet humming like music between us. I glanced over at the Cuda. Still a little rough, still plenty of work ahead. But inch by inch, it was waking up again, slowly, carefully, and with a kind of care I hadn't felt in a long time. Every bolt I tightened, every part one sanded, it all had intention now. Not for a sale, not for applause. Just for me. Better than I expected, I said. Turns out, when you build something for yourself, for no one else's approval, it hits different. It feels real. Feels right. Lisa chuckled. Sounds like you learned more than just how to piece together a big block engine. Yeah, I guess I had. Funny how it works. Sometimes, it takes someone trying to tear your dream away to show you just how much it matters. And sometimes, the worst thing that's ever happened to you ends up being the thing that finally sets you free.